Hello, everyone. Welcome to the best and worst of Walt Disney World, presented by Dreams Unlimited Travel and Disboards.com. I am your host, Ryan O'Clavin, and this week's episode, we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the best things about a particular individual attraction, that attraction being the Haunted Mansion. Spooky. And all those other happy haunts you just heard to help me with this discussion are Mr. Steve Porter.
Hello.
Miss Denny Sunderly.
Hi there.
I'm sorry, I hit the table really hard. Corey Fiescanaro.
Happy Halloween.
Mr. Craig Williams in the back, the man who makes it happen. The Hatbox Ghost of our very own.
That's good.
Which we don't have here in Walt Disney World, so strike it from the record. Yes, so this was actually a suggestion by somebody, maybe on Twitter, some social media of some sort that I saw, and I had it written down in my notes for a while here, and we agreed. We thought Halloween's coming up. It might be fun to pick the spookiest of all the Walt Disney World attractions. Some would argue Tower of Terror, but...
And they would be right.
Mm-hmm.
But I want Haunted Mansion, and I want it now. So that's what we're going to talk about. So we're doing the best of Haunted Mansion. These are the things that we think are what shine and stand out in the attraction for us. Let's dive right in. For me, personally, practical effects. I have said on this show and many other shows before, I do think, like, when I think of like what's the best example of Disney and how it's an innovative storytelling medium when it comes to attractions, and I think Haunted Mansion is a great example where it uses really cool practical effects combined with a really interesting ride system. All these things come together, but for me, the real standout is like, I love the simplicity of a visual practical effect like the ballroom scene. Mm-hmm. I have had it explained to me. I understand science and things, but it's still, when I see it, it is just one of those things where I'm like, I am blown away when you see the ghosts appear in the room, and they're like, that's a practical effect. It's not a projection. It's not, it's just a really cool. I understand it's like
Pepper's Ghost.
Yeah. Pepper's Ghost. So the Pepper's Ghost effect in general is something that I've always I love that you can trick a mind like that.
Well, and what's really cool about it is we've come so far with technology and all these advancements that they made in Disney parks.
Yeah.
But yet there's still something, I feel like that is still one of the coolest effects out of anything, right, even with, compared to everything else that we've had in the future. And this was created... When was Pepper's Ghost
Craig,
invented?
Could you explain what a
way
Pepper's
before
Ghost,
the Disney parks?
What the effect actually is, how it's made?
First off, I need you to apologize for Steve for man-interrupting him.
No, dear. I'm allowed to talk over the men.
Sorry. But, I mean, you shouldn't have interrupted him.
I know.
Steve,
I apologize, Steve. Okay. I'm going to give you one of these.
What a nice back rub.
I don't care.
I'm going to let it go for too long.
Can you interrupt me next so I can get a free back rub?
Okay, this is going downhill. So Pepper's Ghost is a practical effect that basically plays with light and reflection. So essentially, I'm going to ruin this for you, but I'm sure you already know it in terms of the Haunted Mansion. All of the figures that you are seeing in the ballroom are actually directly below you. And there is essentially a plate of glass that is, with the angle you're seeing it at and the way it's all lit, it appears that all the ghosts are actually dancing down in where you are looking at. So it's a very cool effect. It was developed, I want to say, either the late 1800s or early 1900s, but
by a man named Pepper Ghost.
Yeah, sure. Well, just since I don't have his name right in top, he was Dr. Pepper's ghost. The ghost of Dr. Pepper. But yeah, it's a very, very simple effect. I mean, so when it's put in place in the Haunted Mansion, when they're working on the attraction late 60s and opening 71 here in Walt Disney World, and 69 at Disneyland, this is not anything. This isn't new at that point. It's already a complete tested practical effect for years and years and years. So it really goes back to, with this effect and all the others used in Haunted Mansion, Disney was basically taking their knowledge of what they knew how to build movies and such and put it into a theme park setting. And just as we've seen in our generation, there is no substitute for good practical effects done well in movies. And the same goes for theme parks. You can do some cool stuff with screens, but at the end of the day, when there's a really beautifully made animatronic or simple special effect or something even like the stretching room, when it's done well and done practically, it stands the test of time.
The bus in the library are the one that I remember being a kid and like they showed on the Disney Channel how they did it, and it's just one of those where I understand that they're inverted, but it's still one of those where I'm like, but why does my brain receive light this way? It's one of those, that it's just a really cool. It shows how somebody can be a storyteller on like this whole next level that is just, it's like in your subliminal consciousness and stuff. So, well, Steve, since I interrupted you, why don't you tell us one of the things that you love?
From the list, I have to say we talked on a recent episode about our favorite music, and I will use that one because
you stole that. That was supposed to be Greg's.
We actually agreed that this was a unanimous decision.
Yeah.
So, Rhino, you were supposed to read them off, and we taled about them.
Oh, you want me to read them one by one?
Twice to you,
Steve. I was trying to give you a moment in the sun.
Thanks for the back rub, though.
Yeah. Okay. Go on. But you give us your input on the use of sound and music.
Yes, I think that I've talked about it before. Grim Grinning Ghosts is an outstanding soundtrack that's used in the graveyard scene, and it goes beyond that. I think even starting in the queue, like the little howls and different things that you hear, into the spiel that is in the stretching room. There are moments throughout this ride that the soundtrack and the audio are a huge part of the attraction and make it, leave an impact that's super memorable. That some attractions, even if they're great, they don't have that same, punch that Haunted Mansion has.
It's funny because you it's like what you said. Like I think about music and sound, you immediately do think about like Grim Grinning Ghosts, but I think about that eerie organ that kind of plays as you start, and how like recognizable it is, because I went to a Halloween themed bar over the weekend, and like from the street I could hear like the door had opened and I could hear that creep, and I was like, ooh, this is gonna be good, well,
in the foyer music, actually it bookends the entire attraction. I mean, it's the first kind of sounds of Grim Grinning Ghosts that you hear, and then of course it does make way for a little bit goofier versions as it goes on until it gets to the song, but then it kind of goes right back to that musical motif with little Leota as you're passing by to finally finish your ride. Yeah, and it playing over again. So it really is like the entire musical score takes you on a complete journey, and like really almost like an operatic record of sorts, where you have your first start and you get to the end with like a concept the entire way through. But for me, it really is, like Steve already mentioned, the howling that you hear on quieter days. You can be in other parts of the park and hear that howling, and that's like the ultimate weenie, that you hear this. It's like, what is this sound coming from far away? Of course, tried and true Disney fans already know it, but if you're on your first trip, you hear this howling coming. It's like, where's that coming from? You get closer, you see the mansion, you hear it even closer, and like, okay, this is the Haunted Mansion. That's there. It's such. I mean, the use of sound and music in this attraction is just second to none.
Yeah, and it's all enveloping. It's everywhere in there too. It's not just a little bit. It's not little bits here and there. I mean, it is little bits, but it comes together in this amazing, weaves together in this one beautiful canvas. So, well, how about the re-rideability?
Yeah, for me, I love the fact that there are different things that you notice. And I know, Steve, you mentioned something about the attic beforehand. Being a favorite of yours is getting to stop in the attic scene. I would love for us to be able to stop right there in the attic scene, like if they had to, hit the stop button, and you just motor right on through. I want to see all those different. Okay, she was married here, and she got this string of pearls, and what else is over here? It's so fantastic, and you see something every time. And I love like the Escher scene. I always want to, I'm craning over the doom buggy over the side, trying to see all the things that I can't see. Trying to take it all in.
That was one of my favorite additions here. It was that room when it's like I moved here and it had like just opened, and I was like, what was here before? Like I didn't remember it as a kid, but I always think that's a really cool, like fun effect. I love, like, for me, one of the things I like, in the re-rides I've done over the course of the years I've been here now and coming as a kid, like I like looking at the wallpaper because in the corners when it becomes like the bat eyes, but then if you look really closely, it moves a little bit. And it's one of those things where like I didn't notice that the first like, I don't know, 100 times I wrote it. And then you like look, you can see it more and more. And I don't know. Those little things.
For me, it's the graveyard. Even though it's
so much to look at.
When you're a kid, it seems like the largest part of the attraction as a whole. And then as you get older and you become an adult, it's like, wow, this is a very tiny area, actually. Yeah. But for me, it's even like your eyes instantly go to the stuff that they want you to see, the singing busts and the skeletons jumping up, but you miss all of the awesome characters in the background that you might not look at unless you do ride it over and over and over again.
There's like a certain depth to this attraction that there isn't with a lot of other Disney rides, and the detail goes back the whole way.
Yeah. I always feel like I'm seeing a new ghost in the graveyard, like the teacup guy, like all
I noticed cats recently that I didn't notice were there before. I went, oh my gosh, where'd the cats come from?
Re-rideability rolls back into the practical effects for me too, because it's one of those like I love when you come out of the attic and and that's first when you first start hearing that roll of the Grim Grin and Ghost, but the scrim that's moving with the ghosts coming out, and like I love riding that. I rode that with a friend of mine who does like theater effects and stuff, and I'd be like, how are they doing this? And he'd be like, well, it's a scrim and it's being pulled up, constantly rotating and stuff, and I'm like, gosh, I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Corey, what do you have? What's the best thing for you?
So I was saying that, well, with all kind of attractions or even restaurants that have cast members playing along with the part, with the role, and Haunted Mansion definitely fits in that. Like they don't necessarily have like the cheerful look of like a regular Disney cast member would, but they're more like, dredgy, and they're like, let's move along. I like when they play along with the theme of the ride.
Yeah,
a lot.
who hasn't heard the move your body into the dead center of the room? You know, and it's nice. It's kind of like it's just a weird. It's this cool contrast when you have so many smiley cast members and you get over there and just like, like they're a little sassy too. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, at least I can speak from my perspective as an attractions cast member. Maybe Steve as well, and Ryan to a little bit, but when you find out you're going to work attractions, even though you have a general idea of where you are, if you think you're going to work at an attraction, you basically either want to be a Jungle Cruise skipper, you want to drive safari vehicles, you want to work at the Haunted Mansion, or you want to work at Tower. Like those are the roles that everyone wants to do because there's the most unique elements to it. I mean, back in the day when Great Movie Ride was around, that was one too. But
that was a status quo.
Yeah, and so, but like with Tower of Terror and Haunted Mansion, you get to build this character. You get to be as creepy, as mystical as you possibly want to be. And like, with me working at Test Track, you can't really go anywhere with that.
That's like
cars.
That was Lights Motors Action. They used to be like, all right, everyone, you know how you go to the Haunted Mansion and you love when a cast member is speaking to you and it's themed? They'd be like, we really want to, like, we're doing an extra push to bring that through all the parks. And they'd be like, so here at Lights Motors Action, what are we going to do? And I was like, what? They'd be like, hey there, Wraith car driver. And I'd be like, I'm not saying that. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no, I had a similar type of thing where we were told outside of the laughing floor that we needed everyone's laughs for your energy.
Come on in, son. We need your laughs.
It doesn't have the same impact as Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
It's so natural. It's very forced at a lot of the other attractions where it works so well and so effortlessly.
Right. Yeah, the giggles just won't do.
Your giggles won't do. It's like Paul Lynde ushering you in.
I like the Haunted Mansion cast members even more the night of Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, because they have the cobwebs all over themselves and the makeup, the macabre makeup, and it's just so cool.
Well, we have one more on this list we agreed upon, and that was the individuality of the Haunted Mansion at Walt Disney World versus its counterparts in some of the other parks around the world. Yeah. Who wants to speak to this?
Well, I mean, of course, Disneyland is the first in the original, and from an outside perspective, it's in this big mansion that's down in New Orleans. And so from the outside, completely different. From the inside, a lot of similar elements to it, but then very key differences. Like their stretching room is a practical elevator, so it goes a lot further down.
Yeah.
Because it has to get under railroad tracks. And then instead of riding through their first scene with the portraits that change as you flash, you actually walk through there and you walk past the heads that just seem to follow you, as Rhino described earlier with the practical effects. And all of that is before you board your dune buggy. And from there, they don't have the Escher stairs and stuff, but then they do have differences, like their attics a little bit different. They have a little bit different effects in there, plus the Hatbox Ghost.
Yeah.
And they still have the practical hitchhiking ghosts at the end, which I love. I hate that you get to see the animatronic versions, and then after that, there are these goofy little video versions that pop up on there. I like the classic, just sit with you as you ride across on there. And then beyond the world of our parks here, Disneyland Paris has Phantom Manor, a lot darker version of it. Hong Kong has Mystic Manor, and Tokyo Disneyland has a haunted mansion very similar to Walt Disney World's, but you can travel to every single park and get a different take on Haunted Mansion, and that's something that's very special about the Haunted Mansion. The rides could just easily have been cloned everywhere, but they each have something that makes it a little bit unique and worth traveling to see them.
And I think you have the one that you kind of you grew up with, and you're like, that's my Haunted Mansion. So for me, it's like that New York style mansion. Like I love that ours is like on a hill way up here, but I love the Disneyland. You can go right up onto the porch and through the front door, but it's just like the one here kind of reminds me of like, I'd see that, and like if I traveled into Massachusetts that far, so it reminds me of being a kid and being back home and stuff. So, but there you have it. Those are the things we love about the Haunted Mansion that we think are the best things about the attraction, and that is practical effects, re-rideability, the cast members' roles, the individuality of the attraction, and the use of sound and music throughout. So if you want to let us know what your favorite things about the Haunted Mansion are, please do so in the comments below, and we will return and let you know at some point what the worst things about the Haunted Mansion are. But until then, if you like what you see, you can subscribe to the channel to see more, all sorts of stuff that we offer. If you're subscribing, make sure you click the bell. You'll get notified whenever we upload this or any type of video content that we put here on YouTube. If you are watching it here, and if you are listening, subscribe to the podcast too, I guess. But that'll do it. We'll see you again with another episode of the best and worst of Walt Disney World. Bye, everyone.